I'm CCP Merker, Senior Effects Artist on EVE.
And I'm CCP Nobody, Graphics Programmer.
We are part of Team Trilambda, the audio, graphics, and art team for EVE Online. Of course, with so many people on the team, not everybody is going to make it to the photo shoot. So here's CCP Jörg, the art director, showing up. And let's not forget CCP Sledgehammer, and the art manager, CCP Berger, and our lead 3D artist, CCP Salvo. So yeah, that's kind of what Trilambda looks like. And now, a lot's happened in the past couple of years. With such a big team, we tend to get some big changes done over time. And those are just some of the big things, big changes we've done in the last couple of years, as well as the new Suns, which are coming in the next release. So not so long ago, we introduced what we call the visual damage system, with its shields and armor damage. And then we followed up on that last summer with an update to several of its systems, polishing up armor hardening and making the electrical systems on your ships fluctuate while you're in hull. But sometimes we also like to do smaller things also. And here are two of those coming in the next release. This is a new ship skin changing effect. And I feel this one is pretty solid because I found myself spending an hour too many just clicking the skin change buttons again and again and again. So the other one, well, I was lucky enough to go to EVE Vegas last year and was cornered / had a really good conversation with a slightly inebriated player one night. And actually had a lot of great conversations with you guys there. But this player in particular, he really, really wanted to get us to make new VFX for the Prowler. And having been the one who removed the effects on the Prowler in the Trinity expansion way back when, due to them not being up to par anymore, and not having time, at that time, to redo them, well, I felt obliged to follow through on his request. So here we have the new Prowler effects coming in the next release. Everything kind of exposed there, Minmatar construction at its finest. So that restores the effects to the Prowler almost a decade after they were removed. Hopefully it feels like they were always meant to be there. And I feel like this is one of those great things that can come out of these events and EVE meets. And now to take you through some of these, CCP Nobody.
Thanks. Before I start rambling about explosions, let's see how they used to be before our changes. And now here's how they look. Looks a bit better in my opinion. We are so pleased with the response from you guys that you've shown to the new explosions. This GIF was front page material on Reddit last week, posted by somebody with the username Marinis. And here are some of the comments. So a stripped-down version of the current explosion system came out with the Citadel expansion. There were a few reasons why we started looking into explosions at that time. Firstly, we just couldn't make the explosions fit the epicness of the Citadels. And there was always a little bit of a problem with models, the rack model popping in especially. So to improve epicness, we implemented a way of having two types of explosions when something blew up. First up are the local explosions. These explode on pre-authored points on the model. The system even allows us to have multiple different local explosion types happening at the same time. As you can see in this image, we have blue explosions and orange ones. And then we have the global explosion, which is the big boom that we use to hide the switch from model to rack. Now, each local explosion generates a small light, and when all of them are active, it really looks like the ship is on fire. Too bad you won't be able to enjoy them for too long because the ship is about to explode in a massive fireball. which also generate light that you can enjoy for a few seconds, especially near large structures. So these explosions use our updated quad flare system. It now calculates the fall-off instead of using textures, which could lead to texture compression issues. But the real power of this quad flare system is that it renders every flare in a single draw, making them really performant. The explosions also use a great new shader called the optical flow shader. It's capable of taking 16 or 32 frames and creating an extremely smooth animation out of them. There's a real sense of motion in these things. And although they can be extremely finicky to get right, as he can attest to, yep, they are definitely worth it. Now, when we were making the explosions, we saw a small problem with local explosions coming out of the hull, but not leaving any visible marks. So to solve that issue, we added some explosion hole decals. It's actually a very good and cheap trick. We just use a grayscale mask with an alpha, and this on its own really creates a lot of fake depth. But when we add a few textures flowing through the decal, we get fake depth with a lot of life. Now, these are also pretty performant, all being drawn at once in a single pass. Now, at this point in time, we had a few explosions, hooked them up in the client, and started testing them. Oh, I missed half the explosion. So to battle this trick, this thing, we created a cinematic camera that will actually keep focus on the exploding object while transitioning back to your ship. But in typical EVE fashion, you will need to have everything set up correctly to have this enabled. First of all, you will need to have the dynamic camera movement enabled, which is hiding somewhere in the system menu. Secondly, you will need to be using the orbit camera. Now, we didn't add this to the tactical camera because that's used for tactical things. And last but not least, you will actually need to look at the ship that is about to explode. This way, you can create pretty videos like Marinus made. Such awesome. Now, we have a very prolific VFX artist. By making unique explosions for all 1,200 destroyable objects in EVE, that just might tip him over the edge. So instead, we created a mapping structure that we call explosion buckets. These are stored as static data, and they act as the mapping system that controls which explosions can happen, how long, how big the local and global explosions are, the amount of local explosions, and how likely a certain explosion is to happen. We define buckets for each size class, ending up with about 40 buckets for all the 24 explosions we have. We scale them up to fit all 1,200 objects they are assigned to, and now this is a very important aspect of the system because small explosions on small ships don't really convey scale that well, as you can see here. And to tackle this, we made small ships have fewer and relatively bigger local explosions compared to larger ships that have more and relatively smaller local explosions. That's way better. We use pre-authored positions to place the local explosions. In most cases, we use the positions that are on the receiving end of weapons, called damage locators. However, using them doesn't really work well with larger ships and structures because we can't be wasteful with the damage locators due to performance issues. So we need to keep them as sparse as possible. So we defined new explosion locators for those special cases, meaning we can have as many small explosions we want without having to worry about performance outside of the explosions. Now, with the big explosions, we thought we could get away with thinking, let's just make them originate from the center of the model. And boy, were we wrong on that one. Doesn't work. So to tackle this problem, we added another locator, which dictates the starting position of the Big Bang. Luckily for us, we could use this feature for other models as well, like the Nix, which doesn't quite have its pivot point at the center. CCP Myrkur asked me once if we could make the local explosions happen in a different order. I said, sure, and together we came up with 3 local explosion propagation techniques, all done by sorting locators in a different way. First up is the random sort. It's not really a sort. And then growing out from the center. And growing out from a specific locator. Now this one takes the cake. It's our favorite and it's used in the majority of the explosions. Because we can make the explosion start from the last hit location. Let's take a look at that again. That is very satisfying. Now, every explosion in the game is special, but with our mapping system, we could make some explosions more special than others, like the blue one. So in a moment, I'm going to show you all the explosions that can happen for battleships, the Abaddon to be exact. The one on the left will happen 50% of the time, the middle one 40% of the time, and the special blue one is more rare, occurring only in 10% of the times. Destroy more things. Very nice. Now, we didn't get to this point without having some weird shit happening, as you can see in the next video that CCP Savior made. He was testing collision info for a hollow asteroid, and he decided to destroy his ship. Now, when things die in EVE, they really don't follow the physics all that well, as you can see. And apparently, I had forgotten to disable the rotation for the global explosion. Nice catch, CCP Savior. Now, I told you the main purpose of the big explosions is to hide the switch to the rack model. Well, that can still happen. For fast-moving ships, the reason being the server only knows where the ship dies. But the client starts the small explosions at that position, meaning the model will actually drift a bit from the death position. And this is something we would really want to fix in the next iteration. We certainly hope we've made it more fun to blow up your enemies, your friends, yourselves with these new explosions. But now for something completely different. The tactical overlay. It was completely rewritten by CCP Blaze with a lot of help from Team Sisters, making it extremely performant. The whole thing is now rendered in 3 draw calls using our quad renderer. So 60,000 anchor objects pose no problem for this system. It's now more correct than it used to be. The anchor objects will project their correct distance to the overlay instead of just straight down, which is wrong. We also have improved information for modules and velocity indicators for better situational awareness. This was all done in parallel with positional controls for movement and the new Doomsdays. And now, state machines. This is something that's been in the game for a few years. Before, we had a very limited animation system. It only supported a single animation at a time. Now, for animation artists, that wasn't good enough, as all animations and moving parts would need to be synced manually. But now, multiple simultaneous animations are no problem, as you can see with the infected blood river space toilet. I would like to thank CCP Bluescreen for this impressive piece of art. So we can even trigger some effects with state machines, like the structure build effect, and potentially the new skin thing. Lighting has also gotten some love over the last few years. So for a long time, Eve only had one light source, a white light emitted from the sun, which acted as a light for everything in space. Now, the sun will actually emit light that is appropriate to the sun color. Raw! But the sun is not the only light source in the solar system anymore. We also have point lights. These are used in various things like boosters and the flame things on the rorquals. We also implemented indirect lighting using spherical harmonics. This allows us to have light reflected from big objects, like planets and structures and titans and all sorts of stuff. This is how Eve looks without it, and here we have it enabled. Using, well, a bit exaggerated. It's so pretty. Using this under DataText 11, we see almost no performance hit. We tested it with 1,000 chips affected by a single planet, and the performance cost was about 100 microseconds. And now, the post-processing system. We completely rewrote it. Meaning, yeah, it stopped responding.
Yeah.
Yep, that dude is doing something. Let's just wait. All right. Yeah, we completely rewrote it, meaning we had to redo most of our effects. Here is an asteroid field without any post-processing. And here we have tone mapping and exposure control, fog, and God rays. We also have some bloom in there and some very subtle film grain. And now, CCP Merkur to talk about the new suns.
So, let's talk about the new suns. Man, oh man, has this been a long time coming. Let's go back. The stars of Eve, they've been there since the beginning of Eve. Still pretty much in their original form since 2005, when they were last updated. And this is what you might call an extreme case of bit rot, or just entropy, where in the environment around them, the graphics engine and the game has changed so much over the last 14 years. And you can see the changes being made to the game in this video over those years. And, but the stars, they've remained firmly in place, kind of being weathered by this. And for many, many years now, other things have taken priority, for good reasons, of course. Well, because for every feature we do, we ask ourselves, what is the value this is bringing to the players? And I certainly would not have argued for the suns being more important than redoing explosions, or doing the visual damage system, or releasing expansions like Citadels and Ascension. And the argument for us has been that there's no gameplay around these suns except 1v1 at the sun. So it's not a super important focus. But not so long ago, the citadels and new structures came out. And this is kind of a new age of those. And where you can kind of place them anywhere in the solar system almost, which in turn means that more gameplay might start to happen near to these suns. And also, there just has to come a point where we just have to update them. Because, yeah. And I think we all know that point came and went a little while ago. So, moving on to the new suns. A couple weeks ago, we released a short teaser video in the 07 show. And I just have to say, we absolutely loved seeing the feedback and how it moved from being a couple lines at a time to exponential speeds. So, yeah, I imagine those watching this on Twitch probably having some kind of Twitchception right now. But diving into this project, we took a look into the amount of stars Eve has of each type. And what we have is a lot of orange and yellow stars, and a relatively small amount of blues and whites, and there are some reds and pinks in the center there. So this kind of informed us that maybe we should make more variations of the oranges and the yellows, seeing as you're going to be seeing those so much more often. So here you have basically a list of the suns we had before, and here you see the variations we added in. And as a part of this, CCP Nobody over here, he had to run some scripts on our static data to modify all of these existing stars in Eve to utilize these new variations. And I've probably never seen him as nervous as he was modifying the entire universe and submitting huge changes, changes to huge amounts of data. And there you see his change list, 8,038 files. But then a couple days later, I realized I had forgotten to add in 2 of the suns. So he had to do it all over again. So sorry. Yeah. In any case, this then takes us from the 14 suns of old to 29 new suns. And here's where we were before, and here's where we, will be in a couple of weeks. Yeah. But why make so many variations? Well, in my mind, so that there is hopefully a lot to discover in the Eve universe, and that you might not see them all in the first week of release, although a couple of you probably will. And who knows, but maybe years later you'll be in a system and that you haven't gone to before, and decide for the hell of it to warp to a star, and maybe there you discover something you haven't seen before. So that's what we hope this amount of variation might lead to. Yeah. So, yeah, yeah. But what went into making these suns? So, star creation. What's a good place to start when you're making a sun? Probably one of those. Yeah. And then we're going to need to put some textures on it. A volumetric animated caustic texture, like we use on the shields, is probably a good place to start, but composite it so that it has multiple layers of detail at different scales. You slap that on the surface and repeat it several times, but that kind of ends up looking a little repetitive. So what do? Get ourselves a noise texture and add that in for variance. And we also have a couple different detail textures to choose from. So at this point, we have ourselves a nicely detailed sun, but we're lacking overall brightness variation. And then we have the flow map, which we use to tell the shader in which direction to push the texture on the surface. And that allows us to make complex patterns of movements on the surface like this. Here, we add in the brightness map and figure out the brightness levels of the animated detail textures against the overall brightness map, and then it kind of starts to look like something. Then we start to use the flow map and change how much it influences the surface. Then we created a number of gradient textures to basically give the suns all of their color. So everything on the suns derive their color from these textures. And there's also a second set, very similar to this one, but just slightly different, specifically for everything that is in the coronas on the outer side of the sun. And that one is just slightly different to get a bit of color difference from the surface to the coronas. And here we're just switching out this color gradient, which gives us differently colored suns. And allows us to make the variants a lot quicker. So at this point, the sun shader is starting to look like something. But we didn't feel it's quite there yet. So we tried using a gradient texture against the brightness map, kind of utilizing it as a height map, and then running another layer of volumetric texture against that to control where it appears. It took several iterations, but it got to a really nice place, which allows us to make all sorts of variations. So then we also made 6 mesh variations for coronal loops and plumes, the bottom right two there being the most rare. And here they are shaded, and here they are with offsets, so they don't all look identical. And here's what the sun looks like under the hood. And here you can see the sun is spawning all of these halo-shaped particles. They're all random sizes, growing to random sizes within a range, except this one. Well, why is that one different? Basically, what's going on here is that we're constantly spawning the particles all over the sphere, and the bucket of how many particles can be spawned at the same time is completely full, because we give it a max number of particles. And here's the reason. It's this repeating animation curve here. This curve is constantly modifying all of the particles spawning on the sun. And every so often, it's going to be spawning another particle at the same moment that the curve is passing through one of these peaks, giving you random larger particle every once in a while. So, in a way, the new suns of Eve have a kind of heartbeat rhythm inside the randomness of the particles. And here, all of that comes together. And here you can see that occasional larger particle. Yes, so that's the kind of stuff I nerd over. Now, let's add in the rest of the layers of the sun. We add 7 particle systems, each with their own look and feel, and 2 of which are rare, huge solar flares. And then the filament layer gets added with the coronal loops and plumes. Then we have the inner corona with the smaller details. And the outer corona with larger details. The huge scale corona for overall variance. And huge brightness flare from the back. So all of that kind of makes a bit of a difference in the looks of the suns. Let's see. So, sun design. Some people have asked, why don't the new suns look something like this? Well, frankly, it's just because it's not that interesting. Whereas this image, which is also a real image of the sun, is just absolutely gorgeous. It's just a matter of the wavelengths you're looking at the sun through. So our references were a lot of pictures and videos like the one on the right. Another thing we did was get some help from Team 50 to move the warp-in points for the suns. The old locations were somewhere way out here, And with the new suns, we felt like we could really move them up, these warp-in points up closer to get you a better view of all the new details. So the new warp-in locations are somewhere around here, slightly above the equator, thanks to Team Trilambda. So each of the 29 suns has a unique light color, and the brightness and saturation goes down the further away from the sun you get. And this actually slightly changes the lighting in all solar systems. A player by the name of Zanzar posted a picture of what this means to our Eve a couple days ago. And this was one of the responses to that pic. I just love that. The all caps. Start unanchoring everything, boys. We moved to a sunnier grid. It's like, yes, success. So we wanted to create new suns. But we didn't just want to make beautiful new suns. We also wanted to make you feel like you were in the environments of these suns. So here's the default lighting that was there before, and here it is with the new color and brightness. And also a bit of fog we added, which gives it a nice atmospheric depth. Yeah. And as you can see, the avatar, it just looks even more magnificent, bathed and shrouded by sunlight. And that kind of ties our scene together. But our graphics aren't much without the audio to go with it. So our audio guys have also been busy making new audio for these suns. And here's what they may sound like from far away. And from a medium distance. And close up. Really start to feel that rumble. Of course, it's your ship computer, synthesizing all these sounds. And the suns, they're of course vastly different in size. Some are larger than 1 AU, and some are as small as 100,000 kilometers. So it might take you a while to travel between those zones, depending on the radius of the sun you're visiting. Now, most of you have by now seen screenshots of the suns and some videos. But I don't think anyone has seen what the suns look like when you record them over time. Because there's a lot of movement that happens so slowly you might not notice it. And we can see what this would look like with our in-house tools quite easily. So here the suns are sped up 50 times faster. So we very much look forward to seeing some epic videos from the community of what it might look like to build citadels with their build effects over time with these suns as the backdrops. And now before we move on to possible future things, these new stars weren't all my work. I'm just lucky to get to be a part of it. Another huge part of it was CCP Philip, who does the work of several graphics programmers. You might say he and I were maybe the mother and father of these suns. I'm not sure which is which, though. And that would kind of mean that CCP Sledgehammer was probably the doctor helping us through labor, assuring quality, and telling us our sun babies were coming out X milliseconds in wait. And the audio guys for making that sweet solar audio. And that kind of has to mean that CCP Nobody over here must be a deity of some kind, because he had to edit the entire universe to make our sun variations show up. So, quick shout out to those guys, as well as the rest of Trilambda, because this is a team effort. Now, moving on to other things. First, a disclaimer. Most of these are just prototypes. They may never end up in the game. They have not been validated for priority and value to you, the players. But let's take a sneak peek look at them anyways. to see some potential futures for Eve. Auroras. This is a little prototype that CCP Philip has been cooking up in his spare time. And if you look closely, then you can see them moving. And here we speed it up a little bit so you can see better. So, yeah, these are actual images from NASA that they've captured of Jupiter and Saturn. So perhaps in the future, we can look forward to viewing the occasional but rare auroras of different colors and shapes on the planets of Eve, depending on what type of planet it is. Another prototype we have going is better stretch effects. And that means lasers and anything that shoots like a laser, pretty much. In this, we want to make them more optimized and more streamlined. And this entails basically collapsing the three-part system that they're made up of now, wherein each part can have multiple draw calls into just one. And here's a current laser. And here's an example of a new one, wherein we hope to make it look slightly better. Hopefully better than that. That video didn't play. As well as basically perform better in, yeah, there it is, in situations where many lasers are firing. So improving your performance.
Yay!
No. Looks like it's acting
PowerPoint's
up
broken again.
Yes.
PowerPoint should stop drinking. Oh. Is it going?
Yep, there we go.
There we go. Hey!
No.
Oh,
That's not the same. Let's see if we can
Wait
get this up
for
on the
it.
screen.
Good things comes to those who wait. Hopefully.
So, yeah, Smart Bomb VFX.
Oh. Hey!
There it is. Okay, so this is a prototype of a new smart bomb effect wherein we are redesigning the smart bombs so that they feel more like a sphere growing outwards. And you being able to see the effect on your ship hull as it passes over you, giving you better spatial awareness of whether you're being hit. This prototype is in the early stages, and we still have a lot to figure out with whether it's feasible or not. Explosion renovation phase 2. We'd like to create basically, or give you more variety of explosions. And also give you some more rare explosions like that blue one, maybe even rarer, as well as creating some subdued explosions for things in dungeons that are just simple things like, you know, an angel wall or a Minmatar tower or something that doesn't need to explode insanely epically. We'd also like to fix it so that the wrecks appear where the explosions end up if they're moving. So, warp disruption bubbles. I just want to let you guys know that we totally hear you on these. We want to fix the blinding light that happens when they get stacked, as well as improve their visuals so that they match the rest of your space scenes in terms of texture fidelity and shaders. And we will hopefully be looking into that sooner than later. Then there is the jump gates. So what do we want to do with the jump gates? Well, for one thing, we'd like to add lighting. And then we also want to add traffic and lines of sprites like you've seen on the stations. And then we would also, yeah, there we go. This is a before and after of a new gate effect. Hopefully better selling this gate. So those are some of the prototypes we wanted to show you, and those are just some of the ideas that we have. We would love to hear your ideas on how to make the graphics of Eve better for you, the players. So talk to us at Fanfest and through the social medias and the forums. And if you see something wrong, file those bug reports from inside the game. They really help. And after the art presentation on Saturday, there will be a full hour of Q&A with Team Trilambda at 1 p.m. in Serenity, as well as a graphics engineering roundtable later that day. So thanks for us, and have fun tonight.